Anyway, it's good to be here today. I have an opportunity to give two presentations. The first one I gave, it's on the back of the handout in the hall. We're talking about history, some history in the Middle East, because that's happening right now. And in the first presentation, I talked about family history, territory conflict, and religious conflict. And in this one, I'm going to talk about the book of Esther. The book of Esther. This is some history of the Middle East. Again, the presentations are related, but they're not dependent on each other. So why don't you turn to the book of Esther, and I'll give you some background information. By the way, as you're turning there, let me mention that I do not have any Jewish heritage or any Muslim heritage that I know of. I mean, some people have thought that I might have some Jewish heritage, but I don't have any proof of that. So as far as I know, I have no Jewish heritage or Muslim heritage, so thereby I have no family connection to either one of those. Also, I am not a part of a Jewish religion, and I'm not a part of a Muslim religion. So I'm neither one of that. So in no sense, I have no axe to grind. As far as the heritage, I grew up around a lot of Jewish people up in Pennsylvania. And some of you may have grown up around more Jewish people than I have, but I've probably most of you, and maybe in this hall, I probably have grown up around more Jewish people than you did. In fact, and I was talking to the Maldonados, Steve, and I asked Steve, I said, what nationality are you? And he said he thinks he's a lot of Italian. I said, yeah, I think you're Italian, because those are the two nationalities I grew up around, Italian and Jewish. Those are the two nationalities I spent a lot of time around. So a lot of times you can sometimes guess. You guess wrong sometimes, but you guess and think, I think you're this or I think you're that. But concerning my Muslim heritage, is when I went to Israel back in 1972, not my heritage, but my experience with Muslims, I went on the dig a long time ago. I was a young man, and I'm an old man. 1972, I went to Israel for a dig. And Don Smith, who has spoken here at the feast 2 years ago, and he's with a little Hebrew Roots group down in Henderson, he went on the dig with me. And when I went to visit their church about a year ago, he asked in front of everyone, he goes, how did you get invited to all those homes? And I said, well, I'm just very aggressive, I don't mind going up to people. So I was in probably dozens of Arab homes, eating with the families. And in fact, I don't think I even went to a Jewish home when I was in Jerusalem there. So in other words, although I have a lot of long-standing history with the Jewish heritage, I had a lot of experience with the Arabs. Found the Arabs to be very, very warm, very exciting. I think I've told this story once before. This is kind of this is a teenage story, and I'm going to tell you. It's not one of our best days, I would say. When we were on the dig, Clyde Kylo and I, we would sit at night. We would stay up late because we were night owls, and we would talk to Charlie. Charlie was the Arab keeper at the motel we were at. And we had a lot of fun with Charlie. In fact, I went to Charlie's home to eat many times, met his wife, met his kids. Back then we had tape recorders, and they were just fascinated by our tape recorders. But one day we played a scam on Charlie. A guy named David Robinson, who's from Washington State, he was on the dig, and he came in, like he was mad at me, he was going to attack me. He was yelling at me, he was going to attack me. And Clyde, this was all set up, so Clyde went and stopped him and said, no, don't. Leave Havir alone, leave him alone. It was just to put on, like kids would do at a mall kind of thing. I was 19 years old. Then Charlie says to me, this is true. Charlie comes up to me, and I'm going to try to imitate his voice. He goes, David, tonight when he is sleeping, I will kill him. Now, he may have been putting me on. I don't think so. I'm like, no, Charlie, this is just a game. No, Charlie, he's a good guy. He's my friend. No, David, tonight when he is sleeping, I will kill him. I said, no, Charlie, don't do that. So we have great memories, and I'm glad not many kids hear those stories because I don't want them imitating that. But again, I love the Jewish people I was around. I love the Arab people I was around. And so when I watch things happen in the Middle East, I don't like to lump either group with a terrorist. In other words, a terrorist is a terrorist. Good Jewish people, good Arabs, they don't act like those terrorists do. And if they participate in evil, shame on them. And so, again, I'm saying this because the story today, that Esther, is very pro-Jewish. That's why I'm spending time talking about it. Because while the story is very pro-Jewish, it's really where we should be mad at the terrorist. We should be mad at the evil actions and try to be kind to all people. Anyways, you turn over there. When was the book of Esther written? Well, the events occurred between 483 and 473 BC. In fact, the events fit in between chapters 6 and 7 in the book of Ezra. Some that you just can work out historically. Who is the author of the book? I believe it's unknown. They talk about the knowledge. There's quite a bit of knowledge of Persian customs. So the question is asked, did the author live in Persia during that period? I mean, it wouldn't have to have been, but it was someone. Certainly the author was aware of the Persian customs. Also, since the book of Esther is very much about Jewish nationalism and Jewish knowledge, people surmise maybe the book was written by a Jewish author. Again, I don't know. We're just pointing out different facts. What is the theme of the book? The theme of the book is God's protection of his people and God's protection of the Jewish people. It's quite a story, quite a story. And I would want God to protect the Jewish citizens, and I would want God to protect the Arab citizens, and I would want God to stem the hand of the terrorist. And we don't overlump people and say all these people are good, all these people are bad. But there's certainly some actions that are unbelievably wicked, and none of us can like them. An interesting item about the book of Esther, the name of God does not appear once in the book. Even though the concept of an Almighty is very powerful, the word does not go there. In fact, remember that if you're playing Trivial Pursuit, because that is a question that comes up, and you can get that one right. Anyway, let's begin the book of Esther. I'm not going to read every word in the book of Esther. I probably will reread chapter 3, which we had read scripture reading, because that to me is one of the main cruxes of what we're talking about. The book of Esther, I'm going to call him Xerxes. Dixon was reminding me, and that's other translations talk about Xerxes. The reason I'm calling him that is because I find that easier to pronounce than what Reg said. Just being real honest about that. So I'm going to call him Xerxes, as history calls it both names. But in chapter 1, verses 1 through 22, King Xerxes divorced Queen Vashti. He divorced her. And why did he divorce her? Because in chapter 1, he has a big gathering. He's enjoying wine, he's enjoying food. Verse 6, there was fine linen, purple of silver rods, marble pillars. Verse 7, served drinks in golden vessels, each vessel being different from the other, royal wine in abundance. Verse 8, in accordance with the law, the drinking was not compulsory, for the king had ordered all the officers of his household that they should do according to each man's pleasure. So in other words, they weren't required to do it. I don't know if there was any subtle pressure, as there would be in a lot of situations. I'm reading what it says. Verse 9, the queen made a feast for the women in the royal palace. So the men were feasting, the women were feasting. On the seventh day, so it was going a long time. And then verse 11, he wanted to bring the queen over there. He wanted to have the queen available. Verse 12, the queen refused to come to the king's command. The king said she needed to come, and she said, no, I'm not going. Therefore the king was furious, and his anger burned within him. The king, verse 13, said to the wise men who understood the times, therefore, toward all those who knew the law and justice, he talked about that. He talked about the 7 princes who had been there. Verse 15, what shall we do to Queen Vashti according to the law, because she did not obey the command of the king? The king commanded her, she didn't come. What should be done? He was furious. The people were appalled. The other leaders were furious as well. Verse 16, Queen Vashti has not only wronged the king, but also all the princes and all the people who are in the provinces of King Xerxes. For the queen's behavior will become known to all the women, and they will despise their husbands in their eyes when they report, the king commanded her to come, she didn't go. That's really going to cause a lot of flack in the kingdom. Verse 18, this very day the noble leaders of Persia and Media will say to the king's officials that they heard of the behavior of the queen. And there was excessive contempt and excessive wrath. Verse 19, if it pleases the king, let a royal decree go out from him, let it be recorded in the law of the Persians and the Medes, so that it will not be altered, that Vashti shall come no more before the king, and let the king give her royal position to another who's better than she. She's no longer going to come in the presence of the king, and she's going to be replaced. This is what's happening in the land at the time. So we have in chapter 2, verse 1, after these things, when the wrath of the king subsided, he remembered Vashti, what she had done and what she had decreed against her. And then the king's servants who attended him said, let beautiful young virgins be brought for the king, and let the king appoint officers in the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather all these beautiful young ladies and into the women's quarters in the custody of this eunuch. Verse 4, then let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. Let's have a trial. Let's have people come. Let me examine. Let me see their beauty. Talk with them. See their intelligence. Whatever he wanted to do, whatever his criteria was, he was picking a new queen. So let's see. Verse 8. So it was when the king's command and decree were heard, many young women were gathered together. Verse 9. Now the young woman pleased him, and she obtained his favor, so he readily gave beauty preparations to her besides her allowance. Then 7 choice maidservants were provided for her in the king's palace, and he moved her and her maidservants to the best places in the house of the women. Esther had not revealed her people or family, for Mordecai had charged her not to reveal it. What that means is she did not say she was of Jewish descent. She did not say that. That was hidden from it. Because Mordecai told her, Mordecai was a leader, a leader in the Jewish faith. He said, you better keep that quiet. The way you look at, when you look at some of the portrayals, Esther is shown up in Branson, and it was also shown up at Lancaster. They portray her in that fictional depiction of it, that she was not wanting to be a part of it. I think even VeggieTales, when they had their version of it, I think they even paint it where she did not want to be a part of it. But she certainly did not reveal it. Verse 11, every day Mordecai paced in front of the court of the women's quarters to learn of Esther's welfare and what was happening. He kind of felt bad, like, I'm the one who kind of nudged her into this, and now I'm not there to help protect her. What's happening with her? So each young woman's turn came to go before the king after she had completed 12 months' preparation, according to the regulations. 6 months of oil, of myrrh, 6 months of perfumes and preparations. Neil, you thought it took Martha a long time to get ready for church. I had to pick on somebody. And Neil's not even there to get hit. You hit him instead of me, okay? Thus prepared, each young woman went to the king, and she was given whatever she desired to take before him. Anyway, they had gone there. Verse 17, the king loved Esther more than all the other women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins. And he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king made a great feast, the feast of Esther, for all of his officials and servants. He proclaimed a holiday in the provinces and gave gifts according to the generosity of the king. Well, anyway, it came down then. We come to a new twist on the turn because of time. Chapter 3, verse 1. Haman enters the scene. Haman enters the picture. Haman was promoted to a position of authority. He was set above all the princes who were with him. Verse 2, this was in chapter 3, all the king's servants who were within the king's gate bowed and paid homage to Haman. For so the king had commanded concerning him. Haman's my guy, give him respect, bow down to him, give him the respect he deserves. But look at the last line of verse 2. But Mordecai would not bow or pay homage. He wouldn't do it. So when the king's servants were within the king's gate, said to Mordecai, why do you transgress the king's command? Why aren't you doing it? We notice you're not doing it. Why aren't you doing it? Well, now, verse 4, now it happened when they spoke to him daily, he would not listen to them, that they told it to Haman to see whether Mordecai's words would stand. For Mordecai had told them that he was a Jew. I'm a Jewish man, and as a Jewish man, I'm not bowing down to you. That's not what we're doing. It's not going to happen. Verse 5, and this is where Reg started reading. And by the way, Reg is a dramatic reader. We just have him read more often. And I like it. He puts a lot of emotion into it. But we're going to read what Reg read. I wanted to kind of prime the pump a little bit. When Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow down or pay him homage, Haman was filled with wrath. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone. It wasn't that he didn't want to hurt Mordecai. He wanted more. He wanted more than the pain of Mordecai. He wanted the pain of all the Jewish people. Breaking from the reading, you see why I'm talking about this. Because Jewish people can have hatred toward others. That's not right either. But we certainly know that there's been a lot of hatred toward Jewish people. Anti-Semitism is a horrible thing. It's rearing its ugly head again. It's the kind of thing where this happens all over the world. People are against Chinese people. People are against Japanese people. People are against black people. People are against all sorts of people. This is all over. But certainly the Jewish people have had their share of people attacking. I guess sometime we can talk about that. Why? I should have asked that in the interactive Bible study. Why? Because there's no quick, easy answer. Certainly, some people would say because they were the people who killed Jesus Christ. Well, that would be why some Christians may not like it. But again, why do the Muslims not like it? There's a whole lot to that story. We'll talk about that sometime. So we'll think about what is the reason why they have special hatred toward them. Anyway, he didn't want to just hurt Mordecai alone. He wanted to hurt all the Jewish people. Instead, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews who are throughout the whole kingdom. All the people of Mordecai. I don't care if you're a polite Jew or mean Jew. I just don't like your people. And so again, that's happened forever. It's happening today. In fact, some people may not like your nationality. Some people may not like your gender. Some people may not like your religion. I mean, and it's getting worse. There used to be common courtesy toward each other, but we have a world where Satan's stirring things up, and now people are mad at each other for what their title is and what they believe. And a lot of times facts don't enter into it. Sometimes the way you treat people doesn't enter into it. And as the world goes more that way, it's a more dangerous place to be. Verse 7, in the first month, which is the month of Nisan, well, it talks about, again, verse 8, then Haman said to the king, there's a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from all the other peoples, and they do not keep the king's laws. Therefore, it is not fitting for the people to let them remain. If it pleases the king, let a decree be written that they be destroyed. And I'll pay you 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who do the work to bring about to the king's treasuries. I mean, isn't breaking from the reading, isn't that what happens today? Different people make donations to politicians. People make donations to certain companies. For those who want to those who want to deal with the justice system. They have an idea of how they want the justice system to go, so they funnel a lot of money. Is it any surprise that the rich people of the world are causing the most problems? The rich people who are the globalists causing the problems? You say, why are they more? Because they have the ability to do so. Poor people can be just as bad, but see, poor people can rebel and riot, and that's bad too. They can hurt people, they can shoot people. But the rich people, they try to do it in an honorable way. They try to make their hands look clean and make their ideas look clean. And of course, we have a lot of that behind the scenes. Our world's going that way. It's always been that way. It's just being more exposed. People are getting more stirred up, more angry. So it's not like it's never happened before. It's happened before. It's happening again. And it's getting worse. Just as some people want to create chaos so they can get rich. Some people want to create chaos so they can gain power. And the spirit world wants to create chaos because they hate humans and the plan of God. Back to verse 10. So the king took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the enemy of the Jews. And the king said to Haman, the money and the people are given to you to do with as seems good to you. Then the king's scribes were called on the 13th day of the first month, and a decree was written according to all that Haman commanded. To the king, to the governors, who over all the provinces, to all the officials of all the people, to every province according to the script, and to every people in their language. In the name of the king it was written and sealed with the king's signet ring. And the letters were sent by couriers into the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews, young, old, little children, women. They were given a date. So, yes, people have tried to exterminate all sorts of people, whether it be in China, whether it be in Japan, whether it be in Russia, whether it be in Africa, or whether it be in the Middle East. And again, the Jewish people have had there's certain history of a lot of it happening to them. And so do I see it happening similar today? I do. Is it the worst it's ever been? I don't think so. Will it get worse? It could. And can it cross borders and cross different nationalities? Absolutely, it can cross nationalities, as it has done in world wars. It's crossed nationalities before. So you say, well, Dave, why are you bringing this up? Are you trying to ruin our day? No, because you know the story of Esther. The story of Esther turns out good. And so thereby, if you understand, we recognize the evil. We don't close our eyes to the evil that's going on. By the way, when evil comes, there's two ways we look at it. We look at it when it comes that we ask for the Lord's deliverance. We ask for the Lord's blessing. And that's good. That's what we should do. But let me tell you, it is secondary. There's a scripture that says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So while you look to the Lord's deliverance and you pray for the Lord's help, and you fill your mind with the scripture and you fill your mind with the contact with the Lord, that's all the number one thing. But we don't want to be a bunch of babies as people. Unfortunately, our children I say our children, not our kids, but our young people today are taught to be snowflakes. They're taught to complain. You don't get your own way, complain and fight the system. And it's really horrible. We've done it now for decades. And I'm telling you as your friend, first and foremost, you want the Lord on your side. You want his deliverance. First and foremost. But secondarily, we want to realize I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Meaning, yes, we might complain to our friends a little bit because we need to sometimes vent a little bit. And we might need to complain to somebody a little bit. That's okay because we get that out of our system. But overall, then with our own determination on top of, again, God's power is the key, no doubt about it. But quite frankly, we as a people, we as a nation, we as many nations, if people would just be toughened up a little bit and not be so weenies, not so much babies, we'd be a whole lot better off. And I do admire that as a general statement, but it's a positive statement. I do admire that about the people from Israel, the Jewish people. I do admire that as I said, I've read in the first presentation, like a father says, he lives in the United States, and he goes, I have to go back to Israel. My 4 daughters are in the military. I have to go back. And different people saying, I have to do this. I've got to do this. And so, but again, I'm sure there are Arabs doing the same. I have to do this. Because they think when people think they're worshiping a God and worshiping the right thing, again, we have to be tough. And someone say, so Dave, it sounds like you're trying to encourage us to be strong. Yeah. Sounds like you're trying to encourage us to be prepared. Yes. Dave, you think that's the final answer? No. The final answer is depending on the Lord. The final answer is him parting the Red Sea. The final answer is protecting us from whatever comes. But before that happens, as you're leading up to that happening, make sure you're putting the blood on the doorpost. Make sure you're doing the things that are smart. Lock your doors. Do the things. Be smart. And then we can do all things. Whatever comes, we can do it. We put our mind to it, and then with the blessings of God opens the way. But again, it's going to take some good positive thinking. It's going to take some good determined thinking to move forward. So, because I look at this example, this was a horrible example. And who gave the deliverance? Well, God gave the deliverance. But if you read how Mordecai dealt with it, in chapter 4, Mordecai and Esther are trying to talk about what are they going to do. What are they going to do? Because they're looking at, there's certain rules we have to go by. Go to the king. I can't go to the king. There's a rule saying I can't go to the king. So what are you going to do? And they're talking about it, and they were mourning. They were fasting. In fact, we come down to chapter 4, verse 15. After Mordecai and Esther talked back and forth of how they were going to deal with this, And they weren't talking in this room for a while. They were separated, so they had to send messages back and forth to each other. Verse 15, then Esther told them this reply to Mordecai. Mordecai got this message to me. Here's the message I'm giving back to you. Mordecai, gather all the Jews who are present in Shushan and fast for me. Don't eat and drink for 3 days. Extend that fast for 3 days and 3 nights. My maid's here, and I will fast likewise. And I will go to the king, which is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. It was against the law for him to approach, to her to breach. She breached protocol if she went to see him. And Mordecai's like, maybe you should go see him. It's like, maybe you shouldn't go see him. And they're talking back and forth. And so she sent the message, let's fast about this. Let's put it in the Lord's hands. But if I will go against the law, if it's the right thing to do, whatever my fate is, I will do my fate. Well, we see in chapter 5, Esther's plan was she invited the king and Haman to a dinner. It happened on the 3rd day that Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace, across from the king's house, and while the king sat on the royal throne in the royal house facing the entrance. So it was when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court that she found favor in his sight, and the king held out to Esther the golden scepter was in his hand. And Esther was near and touched the top of the scepter. And the king said to her, what do you wish, Queen Esther? What is your request? It shall be given to you up to half the kingdom. I'm not going to give you the whole thing, but you can even have half the kingdom. Is that what you want? I've already been fleeced a lot by alimony. I've already been fleeced a lot by not having a prenup. I'm modernizing a little bit. I'll give you half. I'll give you half. So Esther said, well, if it pleases the king, let the king and Haman come today to the banquet that I've prepared for him. Well, the king, verse 5, bring Haman quickly that he may do as Esther has said. So the king and Haman went to the banquet that Esther had prepared. At the banquet of wine, the king said to Esther, what is your petition? It shall be granted you. What is your request? Up to half the kingdom, it shall be done. And Esther answered and said, my petition and request is this. If I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and to fulfill my request, then let the king and Haman come to the banquet which I will prepare for them, and tomorrow I will do as the king has said. So Haman was plotting how to hurt all the Jews. Now she wisely has a plan. Yes, you trust the Lord, absolutely trust the Lord first and foremost, but don't come up with stupid plans. Do like her, she had a good plan. Somebody say, so Dave, you encourage us to use our brains and be smart. Yes, I am. I'm encouraging you to use your brains and be smart. Don't let people control you. Size up the situation. Yes, God will deliver. That's what we count on the most. But why not let it be a mixed bag? Why not be smart? Why not look at the right way to do things, and then when God blesses on top of it, because it's going to need God's blessing to go against evil. But I'm encouraging you to be smart, be prepared, and trust in the Lord. Well, in verse 9-14, Haman wanted to kill Mordecai. He wanted to kill Mordecai. So in chapter 6, the king honors Mordecai. In fact, the gallows that Haman built to kill Mordecai, those gallows were used to kill him. There's more to the story. You can read the story. You can read the story about how the Jews destroyed their enemies in this specific time. You can read about the festival of Purim, how it was established. You can read about how it was built up and even figure out the reason why it was built up. But the thing was, the main message I wanted to give in this short presentation today, if we're looking at some of the history of the Middle East, it's been very traumatic. It will continue to be traumatic. But the thing is, much of it is driven by hatred, different people hating different people. And every nationality is capable of hating others. Every nationality is capable of doing other horrible things. But it is my belief, as I understand my contact with the Jewish religion and the Jewish people in particular, that they many times will take a more honorable path. And even if they're now taking the more honorable path, they're still in jeopardy. They're still in jeopardy, and I don't know how this is going to turn. I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know how many people are going to die. We don't even know all the stories that are out there. I forgot to get it in Eye in the World this week. I saw a note I left for myself. U.S. troops have been attacked at least 7 times in Lebanon and Syria already. The media is not covering it. But there's a whole lot of stuff that's not being covered. Okay? People cover up things and for their own reasons. It's bad. It's rough. I'm surprised it hasn't gotten worse already. I'm surprised it's gone as smoothly. You have people being killed by the hundreds. You have children being raped, and it's just a mess. It's just a mess. And shame on any Jewish people who do it to Arabs. And shame on the Arabs who are doing it to Jewish people. And shame mostly on the terrorists of whatever nationality, because the terrorists do not reflect the good of any group. It's rough out there, and the thing is, I'm reminding you of the story of Esther. But I can tell you this, I don't have to remind the Jewish people of the story of Esther, because I'm sure the story of Esther is a big part of what they're doing right now. And they might say, that Dave Havir, it's nice of him to remind the story. But, Dave, we're living it. See, I know we're not living it right now. We're praying for you. We're watching it unfold. We're hurting over it. We're hoping it doesn't expand to other countries. We're hoping it doesn't expand to our country, but knowing there's no promises. But the fact is, the story of Esther can be very helpful, very, very encouraging, and very positive. So I wanted to give you some history of the Middle East. I wanted to remind you of the story of Esther.